Hey everybody, Edo here, and last week we shared a video on sort of thinking about reprints and freight and sort of your sales volume and that kind of thing for your products. And this week I wanted to share a video about thinking through localization and localization deals. Now, to be clear, there's a variety of different types of deals, and I've done a number of videos about localization. At least one, if not two. I will share those in the description. Now, over the years, we've created at Pencil First Games a number of different spreadsheets and charts that we use to think about and consider loc deals and percentages and that kind of thing. Now, Pencil First Games, generally speaking, 95% of the time does the localization deal where we print. The other publisher will pay 50% up front, they'll localize it, and then we'll print it, and then they'll pay 50% on pickup, and then they handle shipping to wherever they want in whatever country they want. That is a very specific type of model. It's very different than, oh, let's just license it from you, and you'll get $1,000, $2,000, and then we'll print and we'll let you know what happens. I really don't like those deals. I had to work with a partner and go through legal matters on those deals. I'm not a fan of those deals, but I have done them in the past. So I'll talk about that on the sheet. This is a lot of complicated sheet work. Like I thought about trimming it, but what I would rather is you can't edit it, but you can duplicate it. And when you duplicate it, you can do whatever you want. So I suggest you delete pages that don't make sense to you, that aren't relevant, and just keep the few that are. My goal here in providing this is helping a publisher. This is like 1, 2, 3 games to 4, 5, 6, 7 games type of a size. Think about this stuff. And so you don't need all the noise. Make it work for you. That's really important. So let's flip it around and take a look. All right. So let's take a look here. As I mentioned, there are a number of tabs, and not all of them are going to be relevant to you. Please feel free to make it your own. What you're going to do again is you're going to go into File here and make a copy, and then you can do whatever you want. So let's see. So this is 2022. I'll look at 2021. These aren't, I asked Jessica, who works in these regular, to like scrub all of our information out. So she put in a bunch of made up information. If these deals don't look good, it's because she just changed numbers around. But basically, hey, you've got a number of partners, right? And what's the territory and what's the language, because they're not the same. And then what's the game? Cool. How many units? And, sometimes you could do dupe lines if you want to, but how many units? Price per unit, the total deal value, right? So this is this times this, right? Your print cost and your total profit. So when thinking about deals, oftentimes about whether or not it's worth it, it comes down to what's the profit going to be? Now, again, this is this model where we typically do 50% up front, 50% on print completion, and then they handle delivery. But again, you could simplify it and you just remove print cost and just say, you could still have a price per unit, but ultimately what the deal value is to you and how it works. So you'll need to massage this if you're using those other models. But I strongly recommend having an easy, clear record of your deals. I'll get more into that on the contract side, but super useful to just put in a table. Don't look up a contract every time you need to figure something out. Profit per unit is pretty important for us. We think about it more and more these days, but this is something you can be thinking about, right? Okay, contract type, new game mode partner, new blah, 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 status. This is an update sheet. So this is a little like if you know marketing or I guess sales funnel. So a little bit about a sales funnel and the different status points along the way. This chart is just to remind you where you are and what you have left. So like you have, establishing the interest, negotiating terms, signing a contract, receive the initial payment, send files, translation, receive translation, and then this send files to Watts, eProof, review, eProof, all of these things. That's specific to you handling the print, but you can go through that process, and this is just a good way to know all the steps, even after you've coordinated the pickup and the final, shipment. This isn't really the end. You want to make sure they've gotten it. You want to know the release date, think about the product, and then it's been released, right? So you're going to sort of watch this as you go. You can totally change this based on your model, but it's super useful. And then, if you want, you can do it by year. We sort of track who we're looking at and how as we're going through it. One of the things I'll show you, at the end is our localization catalog, which is like part of establishing interest, right? I'll talk about that briefly. That's not really what this video is. So again, I certainly think you can delete one of these two, but if you want to have different years, you can have different years. And it's good to have a record. If you watched my freight video, this looks very similar. So on the left here, we have our games, quantity, price per unit based on our last contract. This is all sort of made up stuff, but certainly worth your while to have a table that has this information. Really a big deal. Really a big deal. There are some cases where you can coordinate gigantic loc deals that sort of reduce cost because you're increasing the units. Depends on how local, what your loc needs are. But it depends on how specific you want to get. But so, hey, small game A, this is just a table. You can think about the deals. Here's it. If I'm going to be doing, if it's got a $25 MSRP, let's say your deal's at 30%, it might not. It'll be what your revenue per unit. Then you can look at your manufacturing per unit based on this, right? So small game A pulls this information. So it's the MSRP isn't there. You're going to have to add it, but then it'll pull that. How much does it cost to print 2,000? What's the deal value? What's your total revenue? Now, you have this art and design cost. There's a couple things that could fall in here. On the freight one, I have like a sunk cost versus a royalty basis. In this case, you don't necessarily have a sunk cost, so it could be like if you have to do a new insert or something like that because you have like words on it. But also, this is a great place to put royalties. One of the things that I know, like I was talking to a publisher just the other day, and he discovered that he has an international deal that, due to the small amount per unit being paid and his obligation in royalty based on MSRP to the artists and designers or whoever's on that project, ultimately actually the deal cost him money. Like he owes more money out than it generated for the company, which is crazy. So it's worth doing and understanding this. So you could split this out if you want. So that was this table up here. This next table is similar, but here you're just going to be able to like go by rev unit. So like maybe they're like, we don't want to talk about this, but we're just going to tell you like we're willing to pay 6. It'll just tell you what that percent of MSRP is. This is US MSRP. This is just another way to think of the math. You can get rid of this table if you don't want to use it. So, a couple other interesting things. This was a review. And again, I want to keep this, but I also want you to be willing to delete things that aren't valuable to you. This was just a place where we went through and reviewed all of our deals to look at how much profit we were making on a per unit basis across the different deals. Now, Jessica blew out all these numbers and made them weird. We had no deal where we were getting this 40%. That's wrong. But this was where we were thinking about like, hey, what is our target? Like, what do we want to be making per unit? And it was important because it comes to manufacturing costs. It comes to like what percent. Like in this model, you're always going to be talking about the percent MSRP. Right? Actually, let me go to this next one. Now, this one's wild. Okay, it's wild. But here, again, this is in this model, you're always going to be looking at and thinking about, like, they'll be pushing, hey, we don't want to do 29%, we want to do 28% or 27% or 26%, or we want to pay U.S. money per unit, regardless of percent, because we don't have U.S. MSRP. So this was a process of thinking about what we were willing to do based on different amounts of units. Now, one of the things I look for in one of these deals, like a different parameter, is our hope is that if we're taking a 50-50 payment, the manufacturing is covered within the first half of the payment. So, like, imagine the deal goes wrong. In this model, I get a payment, it gets localized, and then we print. And so at the end of it, we owe money. But let's say the partner cancels. We're sitting on 2,000 copies of Hungarian whatever, or German or French, or it doesn't matter. And maybe we can move those, maybe we can't. I guess it would depend. But the point is, if the first payment covers that, you've not really, it's like a massive waste, but you've not really lost any of your own money for them backing out. But if it doesn't, then it could. So like one of the things that we'll sometimes do with partners is if they want to really push downwards on the percent MSRP, Perhaps we're okay with it. Perhaps on a per unit basis, we're comfortable with the amount of money or the deal is big enough, but we want to skew the initial payment to de-risk it for us. So again, this is like super particular. I don't die in this, but you can think about it. And just, I guess it's important to be thinking about how you want to do it. But really, feel free to erase this. Okay, last one. So this is really simple, but it's incredibly important to understand that you sign contracts, and contracts have terms. They have starts and finishes, and they have rules about how many things are printed. They're all different, however you signed it. But some contracts will auto-renew if you don't cancel them. Many will, especially on a localization side, or if the publisher keeps printing or whatever. It's really important to understand the status of your contract, because honestly, if a publisher isn't taking advantage of a partner, isn't taking advantage of your title in a region, you might want it back. You might want to work with somebody else or whatever, but you should at least like close out contracts or whatever. So here was just a sheet where we did an audit and we went through all of our contracts and when they end, when they began, when they end, and then looked at whether they're active, if we wanted to terminate them, when we're going to reach out again, etc. And it's just a way of following along. You know, you can write more details here. It's just a crib sheet, right? This is a bunch of Loc crib sheets that I'm sharing for folks to take advantage of. Now, you know, is this where we start? No, this is sort of, again, this is like mid-size. This is like not your first Kickstarter type, but you could, I guess, if you have some hit massive game. But these are just it's really like, Ed, do I think people are going to use these spreadsheets? I don't know. I definitely would check all the numbers and stuff, but it's more like I want people to think about this stuff. So when we're reaching out to a new like localization partner, we'll reach out, we'll talk to them, or they'll reach out to us. And as you can see here, we have our website, and then at the bottom, we don't have people nav here if they don't want to. We'll give them a link, but just because I don't have it. So like when we reach out to a new partner or an existing partner, we have a catalog. And I'm just going to show it briefly. But this is like the type of information we share when we're trying to get deals, right? So we have a catalog. It's it's a Google PowerPoint, whatever this thing's called, Google presentation. Talks about our standard model. We like to emphasize that up front. Partners, our key products sort of sorted by size. We then actually have an overview of them, their price point, size, weight, that kind of thing. And then we go through each one. So we have our nature line, and then like we have like a sort of sell image, and then we go into having like how many, the prints and the cost, and our marketing folder and our sales sheet. Hey, you want to see the Kickstarter? What are our awards? Who worked on it? Which languages is it already localized? And basically, we just go through this for all of our titles. Usually within the email, we'll have like a particular title, like maybe we're trying to like get people on board for Delicious, which is our next nature line game. But we'll work through all of it with folks and be talking about it on a case-by-case basis. So again, this is just image after image after image. But this is sort of how we think about and talk with our partners to get them excited, to get them engaged. And they'll usually contact Jessica first. So, hopefully, let me see. So hopefully you find this helpful, and it gets you thinking about how you're thinking about localization deals. And you can watch my other video about the contracts, and maybe reach out to me if you have any more specific questions. Anyway, thanks. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.